Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Welcome. I will close this window because Sylvia is participating, but she's talking on the telephone right now. Okay, I'm going to sweat a little bit, and that's not a problem. The verse is 106. The liberated person is not affected by delusion, and he or she is consciousness, whether the body dies healthy or from illness, sitting in meditation or with writhing in agony, whether it dies conscious or unconscious. So what does that say about the liberated person, the so-called liberated person? It says first that, Huh? Oh no, it is the microphone of Sylvia that's open. Okay. Let's hope she stays quiet. So what it says about the liberated person, the so-called liberated person, that it's not affected by delusion. So what is the ultimate delusion? The ultimate delusion is the reality is duality. The world is as real as I am. It's a little bit difficult to get going here. Why I can't
organizer, so I don't know how to do all that stuff.
Okay, let's try again, huh? I have been having so much trouble with internet. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. So it's recording. It's a little bit confusing here. So we try to begin again, the verse 106. The liberated person is not affected by delusion. So as I was saying, what is the ultimate delusion? The ultimate delusion is that the world is real. I am real, the world is real, and we both belong to the same order, and therefore I need the world, the objects of the world, the things, people, circumstances, and so on. I need to somehow work my way in the world so that I can be at peace, at happiness, at satisfaction, and so on. So that is the ultimate delusion. We believe that what we are looking for, which is security and satisfaction and peace and happiness, is out there in the world, meaning to say, the world has true, real value, and I need it for my own completion. So this is the ultimate delusion. So the liberated person is not affected by this ultimate delusion. It does not mean that the liberated person knows everything and never superimpose while reading some situation, the person is there, it has the knowledge in regards to the true nature of reality, to its own true nature. But as a jiva, although it has this knowledge, it does not have any knowledge which could come even so. It's so far from having the knowledge of Ishvara, the knowledge about everything. So now the liberated person is subject to ignorance, but he knows something that solves his problem, because it's the only thing worth really knowing, because knowing about phenomena, objects, or in science or whatever, is always subject to revision, error, and misunderstanding and misperception. The liberated person is not affected by the ultimate delusion produced by Maya. This liberated person is not affected because it knows that I am Satya, I am consciousness, okay? And consciousness, I belong to something which is not the world, which not energy / matter. So I am this conscious light of existence that does not belong to Mithya, does not belong to the world of delusion, but belongs to Satya, my true nature. So he or she knows that I am awareness, I am consciousness, and whether the body dies health or from illness, sitting in meditation or suffering in agony, conscious or unconscious, whatever the condition, this knowledge, I am awareness, and I am not deluded by the conditions of the body-mind. Even if I'm in great suffering, even if I go unconscious, I never lose my certainty of self-knowledge, because self-knowledge is that once gained, it's clear, and then it's firm, and it can never be forgotten. It's not subject to for forgetfulness, okay? So this is good, because a lot of people think like, oh my God, when I'm dying, I have to be in good shape, because if I get ill and I start suffering, and then I'm going to be so identified with the body-mind that I may lose my self-knowledge. That is the logic there. Okay, so now I'm healthy, now I'm doing okay, now circumstances are overall okay. But just imagine if tomorrow I live in dire circumstances, or even physical illness, serious terminal with a lot of pain. So am I going to hold this peace and contentment derived by my certainty of self-knowledge, or am I going to lose it? Can you hear that, Claudio? It's something very relevant, So, and here we have Vidyaranya stating very clearly that regardless of the body dying in good health or in suffering from illness, okay, in agony, even if it dies unconscious, it does not affect the Jivan Mukta. The liberated person is the one who has this knowledge, and this knowledge is such that regardless of the circumstance, it is never forgotten, okay? It's never forgotten. It is very interesting. It reminds me again that example that I often share with you about the restaurant. And I was running the restaurant, and then I was afraid, because in my contemplation or in my quiet moments during the day, I'm holding this certainty that I am consciousness and I am free. But when I'm no longer having time to hold this thought, when other thought comes into place, other thoughts replace this thought. I am Brahman, I am free, I'm limitless consciousness. When other thoughts, such as the clients, the wine, the food, and boom, boom, when all these thoughts are occupying, crowding my mind, so what's going to happen with my self-knowledge? So my Aham Brahma is me, thought is going to be pushed aside because there will be many other wriths occupying my mind. So here it says that doesn't matter. And that's what I had to learn on those days. Doesn't matter, because self-knowledge, it's once it's gained, once it's clear, once it's firm, once it's properly assimilated, it's not subject to loss. It's not subject to forgetfulness. You don't lose it, okay? Even if you stay for hours and hours without having a single moment to contemplate the thought, aham brahmasmi, the thought comes back the moment that you stop, okay? The moment that you just stop being there, totally stressed out with many thoughts about the world, you stop it, and then that knowledge comes back, okay? It is that simple, and that happens even on other levels, on lower levels of knowledge, because before self-knowledge clicked for me, I used to live in the USA, and I used to work very hard with my restaurant, but I used to take vacations, and every time I used to take vacations or doing some how we used to call it seminars, not seminars, is retreats, doing some retreats with some of those new Advaita gurus, or even going to my vacations in California, in the house, in the ranch of my ex-wife. So whenever I would go there, and then I used to have free time from the restaurant, and then I would open my books, my spiritual books, and then meditation would begin coming back, that those thoughts would surface, and then again I was, okay, I did not forget the purpose of this life. Although I was busy for 6 months, I did not forget, because the moment that I stopped, immediately it surfaced in my mind, and I say, Jesus is what I want. I want to contemplate. I want to meditate until it is clear for me. So it's this kind of spiritual punya, it's there. They are seeds of self-knowledge that whenever the circumstance of the soil appropriate, it sprouts again and again, sprouts again and again. And then once it sprouts to become a big tree, the tree of self-knowledge, and then doesn't matter. The tree is never going to go anywhere. You just have to turn it and see, oh no, the tree is here and it does not go anywhere because I am that tree. So it is me. So that is another nice angle here. So it's not affected by delusion, it is consciousness, and whatsoever the condition, this knowledge, I am consciousness, is never not present, it's always there. Jiva Mukta means the Jiva is free. We know the Jiva is actually consciousness plus a subtle body. So now we have this concept, this mathematic equation. A Jiva Mukta is a Jiva that is free. And the Jiva is consciousness in association with a subtle body, in apparent association with a subtle body, where it is consciousness shining on a subtle body or reflecting on a subtle body. So the Jiva is consciousness in association with a subtle body, so it is free if it's not identified with the subtle body. Okay, now we have, again, those kind of notions and concepts. So the Jiva easily identifies with what? Identifies with the physical body. Now we call it all the body-mind complex, the body-mind construct. So the Jiva easily, the Jivas that they have a mind which is a little bit more dense than most, believe that I am the body, I am the physical body. And then there are some Jivas that begins developing the mind, the intellect, and then they tend to identify more with their mind, with the subtle body, than with the physical body, okay? But the Jiva is only free to be called a Jiva Mukta if it's neither identified with the physical body nor identified with the subtle body, okay? The Jiva is free when he says, I'm not the physical body. I'm not the subtle body, meaning to say I'm not the I am thought, and I am wrapped up with all other thoughts about the world, and I'm not even my causal body for those who know that they have a subtle causal body as well. But the jiva, when under the spell of avidya, identifies with the subtle body and the physical body, and apparently becomes bound. So it gets bound to what? What is this boundedness about? Oh, I'm bound. No, I'm free. I'm bound. I am free. When the jiva is under the spell of ignorance, avidya, this cosmic ignorance, it identifies with the bodies, the body-mind complex, and then apparently it becomes bound. So what is this boundedness about? Can you tell me, Claudio? What is bound to what? Or anybody?
It's bound to the identity of being an individual, separate from the world, separate from everything else.
Okay, this is one angle, yeah. So it's bound to the idea I am an individual, but this individual, which is consciousness associated with the body-mind complex, this jivatma, it becomes bound to the world of objects. And by objects, we mean to say even our mental and intellectual states. I'm attached, I'm bound, I'm attached to the world of objects, I'm attached to things, I'm attached to people, I'm attached to circumstance, and I want to hold on to everything that somehow produces a little bit of ananda to me. So this is the boundedness that the jiva, suffers when it is under the spell of ignorance. The spell of ignorance is going to compel the jivatma to identify with the body-mind as an individual. And once it is, I am the body-mind, and then immediately, unavoidably, it becomes attached to the world, okay? Because unless you break with that attachment to your body-mind complex as your identity, if you don't break with that, you are going to be attached to people, place, things, and circumstances. There is no way around it. So it feels that it becomes bound. Jiva also means living or alive, which is an interesting concept as well. So what is to be alive? No, it means to be a jiva. So what is a jiva? It's consciousness associated or shining in a body-mind complex, vivifying a body-mind complex. But this jivatma, this jiva also means living. Why? Because this body-mind construct is enlivened by consciousness, and therefore it is a living being. It is alive. If it is not alive, it is not a jiva, because jiva must be alive. That's why we need to look into these subtle distinctions. What is jiva? Jiva, if he loses the physical body and he's deprived of a physical body, is he still a jiva? And then a jiva is an entity, is an experiencing entity. And the experiencing entity can only experience if it has at its disposal instruments of experience, the mind and the sense organs and the sense instruments. And then it can experience the world, experience Jagata. And then we can say, oh, but the jiva is still there experiencing its vasanas in the dream state. Yes, it is experiencing its vasana, but there is not much there in terms of learning, because you experience in a condition in which your intellect is very poor, our intellectual faculties, which allows us to discern and extract knowledge in the projections that occur in the dream state. it's not of much value. So the jiva is the living creature. It has the three bodies aligned, and then it is interacting with the world, and it is an apparent person, and it's growing as far as if he knows how to extract knowledge from experience. So it means a living being, an apparent person who is free of delusion, health, and consideration. Now, he was talking about the jiva. Jiva means a living or alive, and then it means a living being, an apparent person. But the jiva mukta, in that case, is someone who is free of delusion. It's free of health considerations. So health considerations is to go aligned, to support this verse, which says that the individual is free from delusion, even if the body is in agony, okay? Even and there is no considerations of, oh, am I going to get sick? Am I going to come out of this illness? And how about this virus and so on? So the Jiva Mukta is not much afflicted by the physical and mental conditions of the body-mind complex. That's what it means. To say I am liberated does not mean that the body and the mind are inoculate from pain and pleasure. So when we say that the Jivan Mukta is liberated, it's no longer bound to the world of objects. It does not mean that it is totally free from pleasure and pain. So pleasure and pain is going to unfold as a byproduct of one's Prarabdha karma. So as we know, so the Prarabdha karma still have to exhaust itself for as long as the yoni is incarnated, and it's going to do so according to whatsoever was there in the system, okay, whatsoever sanchitas were not liquidated or fulminated, and then there will be some Prarabdha karma unfolding that not necessarily are going to get the yoni, but it's going to produce pleasure and pain. Then what is the difference between pain and suffering, pleasures and peace and satisfaction, okay? So pleasures we get when we really gain some object of desire, and then we are happy. There is a happiness that occurs. But satisfaction does not depend on happiness, on happenings, on gaining of objects of desire. The same way pain occurs for the body-mind, and is that which cannot be rejected, cannot be said, no, I don't accept that. It is choiceless. It's not in our hands to control whatsoever Prarabdha karma unfolds, but this is pain. It occurs to the body-mind construct, okay? Because the body-mind construct being one single organism, if it gets to the body, the mind also becomes weaker, okay? But that does not affect one's self-knowledge. And the self-knowledge are going to give it a certain immunization to suffering, okay? Not to pain. Pain is going to happen, but not suffering, okay? Likewise, satisfaction is different from happiness, okay? Satisfaction is there regardless of happy events or unhappy events. Satisfaction is there, okay? So we have to make that distinction there. Pain is going to be there as opposite to pleasure, but the liberated is not going to convert that into suffering or happiness. The ups and downs, they do not get to the liberated person, okay? But the body is still subject to pleasure and pain. This needs to be understood because many people who realize the self are somewhat disappointed because they believe liberation is going to confer experiential bliss. So we know that there is these funny notions in the spiritual globe, and everybody tends to believe, most everybody believes that enlightenment is is an experience, a permanent experience of liberation or bliss, experiential bliss, and that is going to take care of the problem of pain. Okay, so when the people they get self-realized, and then they realize that very little has changed. Okay, and the person still has to deal with the day-to-day problems of life. You probably heard my story with Balsekar, yeah, Ramesh Balsekar. I went to see him twice in Bombay. On those days, I used to live in Lucknow with Papaji. And then the second time, I believe, he told me very clearly that enlightenment is not going to solve your problems. You're going to have all the problems still with you. And I got so upset with him that I never went to see him again. And I started talking bad about him to everybody like now, saying this is a fake guru, because he said that enlightenment is not going to take care of my problems. I was, everywhere I was looking, I was still deluded to believe that, no, when I get enlightened, I'm going to have all these people, these disciples around me taking care of my problems. They are going to take care of my, so this was all my projections, you know. So don't be disappointed and don't be discouraged, because reality must be valued. You know, what is real is real. It has nothing to do with a permanent state of bliss. And the problems of life, they remain, but the way the yoni deals with them is what makes the difference, okay? And then there is a piece of James here saying that once he was told by a seeker in Arunachala, in Ramana Ashram, that Ramana Maharaj was probably not liberated because he suffered and died from cancer. And I heard that while I was visiting the ashram, and one of the time it was a highly elevated teacher in the ashram there. Is a Brahmin that talks about the teachings of Bhagwan, and he was talking about the mind being the poison. The mind needs to be destroyed. And then he said, the mind is so poisonous that the mind of all devotees of Bhagwan have given Bhagwan the cancer that he suffered and died from. Therefore, we need to kill the mind. And this was a highly respected teacher of the teachings of Bhagwan. So there is this strange notion that Ramana, you know, for some say there is something wrong because he should not have died if he was enlightened. He should not have received that Prarabdha karma. So it's quite possible to experience intellectual, emotional, physical bliss more or less continually, owing to good management, not to moksha. So there is another piece of Ramji here that it says it's possible to experience bliss. He exaggerates a little bit to my view. It's possible to experience intellectual, emotional, and physical bliss. So physical bliss is not in the hands of the mind, you know, it's not the jurisdiction of the mind. The self-knowledge happens to the mind. It's possible to experience mental satisfaction, mental stability, mental strength continually, you know. And why? Because the gunas were properly managed due to moksha, okay? Due to what he calls, this is a concept that Ramji launched in the spiritual world, which is Guna Management, okay? I never felt much attracted to that kind of teaching because I have a different view of the way the guna establish themselves in a more sattvic proportion, okay? And that is done due to what? Self-inquiry, karma yoga, self-knowledge, and then the self-knowledge becomes more and more established, firmly established, and then the mind is no longer subject to desires and aversions, and then there is less rajas and tamas and more sattva guna, and then the mind becomes naturally balanced or dominated by sattva guna. I say that because when Ramji launched this Guna Management book and web seminar, I met some people that they were all excited, believing that they got a key and the key is going to resolve my problem because now I know how to manage the gunas. So to manage the guna is not as easy as said, okay? It's not a question, oh no, I don't want these rajas, I don't want these tamas, I want sattva now. Where is my sattva now? Where am I? You know, there are a lot of force coming from the causal body, you know, that are not easily managed. If the person has a predominance to Rajaguna, it cannot dictate, okay, now I manage my gunas, okay? So the guna management happens spontaneously. Ishwara is going to manage the gunas, and people were getting the impression, now I know how to manage the gunas. No, Ishwara is going to manage the gunas to you, yeah? To the extent, to the degree that you start living, okay, a more sattvic lifestyle, and then you start producing more and more sattvic dharmic vasanas. And then when you see your conscious mind is more conditioned by sattva guna. So it's a complex system, okay, of my thoughts, my actions, my words and my actions that are going to cultivate, you know, sattvic vasanas that are going to cultivate a conscious mind in a more sattvic condition. As we know, we cannot manipulate the gunas unless we do a fair inventory of one's lifestyle, one's values, and then gradually we start developing a sattvic lifestyle, and then sattvic actions, and sattvic thoughts, and then self-inquiry. It's a gradual process, okay? So I would put it more in the terms like it's quite possible to experience mental, emotional stability, let's say, stability or satisfaction, and it's more or less stable, okay? It's possible to be more stable emotionally, mentally, emotionally, okay? And experience satisfaction or bliss or peace more or less continually. And this is due to the predominance of sattva guna in the mind of the individual, okay? And then it says here in the end, so it's possible to experience this bliss, let's say physical, emotional, intellectual bliss, more or less continually, owing to Guna Management, but it's not owing to moksha, okay? It says not only to moksha, because moksha, what is moksha? Moksha is a knowledge, understanding in respect to your true nature that not necessarily are going to manage your gunas, but here it's emphasized that you can manage your gunas, and moksha not necessarily is going to manage your guna for you. You understand? And that's where I understand the angle Ramji is coming from, but I don't really appreciate much that angle, because to me, it's moksha, it's self-knowledge that's going to manage the guna. You know, in other words, it is your effort into inquiring and learning and knowing who you are that is going to provide Ishwara with a set of vasanas that are going to manage your guna in a way that your mind is more sattvic, okay? It's a mind resolved by the means of self-knowledge, a jnana, not like manage the gunas, okay? I hope you don't feel offended, because I know that, you know, I'm not talking anything disrespectful. It's just like a, and it's easier to effectively manage the gunas when self-knowledge is firm. Of course, it's only possible to manage the gunas when self-knowledge is firm. Try to manage the guna when self-knowledge is not there. You understand? You are totally ignorant in regards to your true nature. trying to manage your gunas. Impossible. Huh? So, and it's easier to effectively manage the gunas. Actually, it's only really possible that when Bhagavan manages the gunas for you in a positive way, when you have the self-knowledge and it's firm and it's clear. Does it make sense to you guys or not? But moksha does not ipso facto imply guna management. No, moksha has nothing to do with guna management, as I said. Okay, the next verse, 107. The knowledge of one's name in the awakened state is lost during the dream and deep sleep states, but it returns when one awakes. Similarly, self-knowledge is never lost. So it's exactly what I was mentioning before. When you have this self-knowledge, it's not subject to forgetfulness. Okay, it's always there. So you have your name, you never forget that I am Claudio, and then I go to sleep, and then I even dream, and when I dream, I forget that I am Claudio. You know, I'm someone there, and I don't even understand who am I when I'm dreaming. So I go through these two states, and I no longer know that I am Claudio. I forgot my name. But then when I get up, when I wake up, immediately the knowledge in respect to my name comes back. Once I'm awake, boom, I am Claudio, and I am a human being, and I was dreaming, and so on and so on. So what happens with self-knowledge? Self-knowledge, once it was gained, I mean, the certainty in respect to my name as Claudio is something so firmly hardwired that, I can forget it in the dream and deep sleep, but it comes back immediately. Why? Because it's a strong vasana. It's hard and fast knowledge, name knowledge, let's say, okay? So now, when you have a self-knowledge, you know who you are. You know that you are free, limitless consciousness, okay? But then that knowledge, is apparent, disappears when there is a lot of other experience bombarding the individual in day-to-day interactions with the field of object. And then you are just there, dealing with so many things that you don't even think for a moment that Aham Brahmasmi, I am limitless Brahman, because my mind is just occupied with so many other thoughts, okay? But the moment that I recompose, or I stand back immediately, the name I am Cloud comes back. Yeah? The knowledge, Aham Brahmasmi, comes back. Yeah? Self-knowledge never lost, even if it appears to be lost because of other vrittis occupying the mind. And there is also another phenomenon that happens. Other vrittis can come and occupy the mind, and the mind at the background still holds this vasana, Aham Brahmasmi. I am limitless consciousness, and the mind is being operated by all these thoughts, but the mind is an object to me, and I am consciousness. So it remains in the background. Even when you are extremely busy, it still remains because there is a sense of objectivity towards the mind and the physical body, okay? It's never lost. That's why we say that self-knowledge or knowledge that which is always good, even when apparently it's not there. Consciously it's not there, but subconsciously it's there. If this knowledge is firm, it is never lost. It appears to be lost if the vasanas have not been rendered non-binding. So this is an important notion or teaching of Vedanta about binding and non-binding vasanas. A binding vasanas is a vasana that somehow blinds, okay? Because it's something that projects value to some thing in the world, okay? And then it compels the individual to go and get it or go and avoid it, or fight it or so on. These vasanas may make the world so real that you forget the unreal nature of the world and the reality of the light of the illuminator, your conscious existence, okay? So when these vasanas have not been rendered non-binding, meaning to say it's a compelling, it is a very strong, hardwired and binding in a way that I can't help but I have to run after those tendencies, I have to support those tendencies. I lose myself. And when I see I'm going with it. So vasanas are there, but gradually it needs to be rendered non-binding. When the vasana is non-binding, it's just a tendency that comes, but still it does not overtake the seer, does not overtake one's intellect. The intellect is going to see, no, this is a tendency, okay? I have been there, I have done that, and I'm not that, and it does not help me in my process of self-knowledge and liberation. And then I'm hindering, I'm converting a binding vasana in a non-binding vasana, I have a certain power. I'm no longer a slave of the vasanas, I'm the master of my vasanas. Therefore, I can tell no to the vasana or no to Ishvara, as James sometimes likes to put. So it can be lost, apparently lost, if the vasanas have not been rendered non-binding. This is why karma yoga and guna management should be highly valued by discriminators. Okay? So this is why karma yoga and self-inquiry, I would say, should be highly valued, because that's the only way we can really convert binding vasanas in non-binding vasanas, by the power of discrimination, okay? By discriminating, we are naturally managing these tendencies, okay? These vasanas. Yeah? People get the knowledge, but lose it when a powerful vasana covers the intellect with passion or dullness. So when we have a lot of rajas and a lot of tamas, in those moments, a person who had a clear moment of understanding, and then one of these vasanas makes the person totally passionate or dull, And then what happens? The person said, "Oh my God, now I really got myself into some trouble here, because for 1 or 2 hours I forgot who I am." Why? Because passion, rajas and dullness, tamas, have this power to project value, project reality in the world, and conceal my nature as purna. Tamas is going to conceal my nature as whole, full, and complete consciousness, and it's going to project fullness and completion in the world of objects, rajas and tamas, passion and dullness, okay? So, but once this self-knowledge is firm, however, the quality of the mind does not affect it. So here James is saying that we have some vasanas. Vasanas may be very binding, very powerful, hardwired, and these vasanas are going to produce a lot of rajas and tamas, and then the intellect is going to be affected and disturbed. And then this clarity, this vision, this Vedantic vision in respect to my nature is Satya and the world is Mithya, okay? And I am the only source of happiness and so on. Once, if I lose that because of this passion and dullness, rajas and tamas, and then in that moment, I feel like, oh my God, I have lost my enlightenment. I have lost my self-knowledge. I have lost my moksha. But once this knowledge is firm, However, the quality of the mind does not affect it. And then what it said here, it said that when the knowledge is not really hard and firm and fast, very, very firm and always present. So, and then any variation of the gunas, proportions, may affect the certainty of self-knowledge. But once this knowledge is firm and clear, okay, it's hard and fast, and then the mind can fluctuate between the energy. The mind may become more dual, the mind may become more rajasic, but it does not affect one's self-knowledge. Did you understand, Claudio? Yeah? Mark? In fact, it's not actually correct to say that self-knowledge can be lost, because to do so implies that it refers to something other than you. How can you lose yourself? Self-knowledge is knowledge about your true nature. And what is your true nature? It's not something out there. It's you. It's your most fundamental nature, that without which you are no longer a being. Okay? So how can you lose that if it is you? No? When you know that it's you, that liberation is your nature, and what you are searching is you yourself, and then it cannot be lost, because you are not an object that comes and goes. You are that never not present. So we are the light of the illuminator, that in which the world of phenomenal objects appear and disappear moment to moment. We are that light, the only principle never not present. Okay, even in the absence of the universe of Jagata, I am that never not present. That is the understanding here. Verse 108, the knowledge of awareness based on the teachings of Vedanta cannot be dismissed because there is no evidence that contradicts them. A lot of people say, I see, prove that I am consciousness, prove that I am limitless, and so on, prove that I am infinite existence. And then Vedanta comes and say, prove that you are not, prove that you do not exist, prove that you are not conscious, So there is no evidence that can contradict these teachings, okay? People believe that the teachings are not really convincing because their minds are not subtle enough to understand the teachings, understand? But nobody has any evidence that can contradict the teachings. You are not the body-mind, you are limitless, infinite, ever-present consciousness, existence, okay? So how can you contradict something that it is present at all times as your very nature, your conscious existence, you existing as a conscious being? And then the only trick is to understand that you are not the body-mind, therefore you are existing as pure limitless consciousness, which is not the intellect, which is not the mind, which is not the human consciousness, but it is non-dual consciousness, the only consciousness there is. So that's the only trick in the end that we need to understand. We have to let go of this. I know I exist at all times. I know I am conscious of all times. And I need to understand my ananta nature, my limitless nature, one without a second, because I am all there is. Consciousness is all there is. So we have here knowledge gained by other means. So we have some means to gain knowledge. For any knowledge to be gained, we need a means. A means is the body teaching body that's going to convey certain knowledge. If you want to knowledge of physics, you need to go to a school of physics, and then that body of knowledge is going to be taught, and then we gain physics knowledge, for example. No knowledge gained by other means can negate the knowledge that reality is non-dual. The self is limitless consciousness, always ever free. Okay, how are you going to prove that Vedanta is wrong? Okay, so what is the means of knowledge that you're going to use? The entire field of science is within mithya, it's within phenomenal object. Okay, everything that we learn is within mithya. And Vedanta comes and says, no, you are something that is counterintuitive. It says that you are not the body mind, you are infinite consciousness, and the world is just an appearance within yourself. So it does not seem to be so, because perception is going to delude every human being, as Lord Krishna says. So, but what is the means of knowledge? What is the scientific means that are going to debate and negate the Vedantic knowledge that consciousness, existence, is of nature of non-duality, and it's always free and independent of any phenomenal object, which is illumined and revealed by this only reality, this only principle. So there is, of course, no means of knowledge that can negate it, because the object of knowledge, Vedantic object of knowledge, is the self, is sitting, so to speak, in satya, and every field of knowledge is sitting in mithya. How can you have a means of knowledge which is totally, totally, how you say, I was going to use another word, it's totally living, let's say, or sitting, or based in phenomenon, in mithya? How can something from mithya, object the nature in respect to the only reality, which is satya? The object of knowledge, Vedantic knowledge, the self, is beyond the scope of perception and inference, as we know. The object of knowledge cannot be objectified, cannot be known by the sense organs. Perception and inference cannot really, gain knowledge about the self. We need a different means of knowledge. And this means of knowledge, sometimes we say the Vedanta is a science of reality, but it's a different science, because it's not scientific knowledge in the sense that it's knowledge in respect to scientific phenomenal objects. No, it is a body of knowledge only designed to cancel the mistaken notions and ideas that I am the body-mind complex, okay? And then once those wrong notions about ourselves are going to be canceled by this means of knowledge, which are we can only imagine it was revealed to us, because although it's very simple, it's so subtle, it's difficult to imagine that anybody would have figured it out. So when we have this knowledge, and then this knowledge is going to cancel those wrong notions about the true nature of reality, and then what's going to happen? That ignorance is going to be neutralized by this body of knowledge, and the individual got the knowledge which is belongs to satya, which is free from the duality, knowledge and ignorance. So now you got the knowledge in respect of the light of consciousness, in which the phenomenal object appears and disappears, and it's in constant flux of change and always being examined by all creatures. So we're going to have the knowledge of the light of the illuminator, and the light of illuminator belongs to satya, And all other means of knowledge belong to Mithya. There is no means of knowledge belonging to Mithya that can contradict the teachings, the means of knowledge, the pramana called Vedanta or Upanishads. Okay. Saying that the Vedas cannot be contradicted does not mean that you are not free to contradict them. So that is a nice joke. Yeah? Go and knock yourself out. Try to contradict Vedanta, and you are going to fail because you are trying something which is impossible. You know? It only means that on the topic of the self-consciousness, you are not an expert. So trying to contradict the Upanishads, trying to contradict the teachings, this pramana called Vedantic teachings, only proves that you don't know exactly what the self is. You still believe that the self is contained in some phenomenon, in some object. Huh? If you are an expert in this self topic, you would not be inquiring into Vedanta. So the fact that you are inquiring into Vedanta means that you are not really self-realized. I have been pointing out the limitations of the Neo-Advaita for many years on the base of the Vedanta teachings, and have not had one argument from any teacher concerning the truth of the teachings. This is so because there is no standard by which one can evaluate the teachings of Vedanta. Yeah. I mean, the scientific teachings, the teachings in respect to the world, you know, there are so many fields of knowledge, you know, objective knowledge, scientific knowledge. There are so many. And every time that we learn something just so that it can be discarded as half-truths or half-lies, and then we moved into a better understanding. So all these teachings, you know, they tend to create some guidelines in which they can evaluate. If somebody presents a new theory, you have some base to say, no, I mean, we have some base here, let's evaluate and decide if this new, you know, if this new theory here, this new work, you know, has some fundament or not. But in the case of Vedanta, there is no standard by which one can evaluate it, because the teachings of Vedanta are the most simple thing, because self-knowledge is the knowledge. It's very simple. It's a knowledge in respect of something that is the most ordinary, as Ramji likes to put, is that which is always present in every corner of the universe, you understand? Which is the light of the illuminator. So, and how you're going to find ways to evaluate the teachings of Vedanta? Why? Because there's no standard. It's so simple. It's the knowledge in respect of the light of conscious existence and the fact that it is the nature of everything, including the inert world of object. So now how you're going to have another body of knowledge or a standard, you know, organized body that's going to say, no, let's qualify now, let's evaluate the teachings of the Upanishad. No, there is not such a thing. There is only one teaching, and this teaching, they culminate with the statements such as Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, that can only be understood by those rare individuals that have developed their intellect to that point, you know, to that level of qualification, subtlety, you know, with a lot of contemplation and sattva guna being developed. There is no standard, owing to the fact that they are in a different order, in a different category. You know, one is in the world of phenomenal object, the order is in the world of nominal, in absolute. Okay? There is nothing but the light of the illuminated, the light of consciousness. Okay, so they are in two different categories or orders. Okay, in the world we say path-oriented teachings. So Vedanta is a pathless path. It means it is a means of knowledge. It means to say it is a means of knowledge, okay? Means of knowledge. So people, they have a hard time to understand the value of knowledge and what a means of knowledge, such as self-knowledge, work, okay? Because they tend to see as knowledge about something other than the very self of the investigator, of the inquirer, you know? And then they, no, I have to go through this path, and then, yeah, we can say that there is a path. The path of Vedanta, there is a path of Vedanta. A path is a path of development of the qualifications, okay, of refinement and purification, and making the mind more and more subtle and contemplative, focused, and so on. So there is a path as far as preparing, qualifying the mind, but then when we come to the final teachings, it is a pathless path, because you either understand or you haven't yet. You either understand or you haven't yet, and there is nothing much we can do about self-knowledge, but there is something we can do about requalifying, like Dayananda brought this notion some time ago. Yeah? You either appreciate the teachings or you don't. Oh, this is so true. It's unbelievable. I mean, some people, they find out that I teach Vedanta, and then they are, oh, I want to take a look, send to me some links and this and that. And I'm always a little bit like, I don't know, you know, because if I send to the person may find that it makes no sense, you know, and then they say, oh, this guy is a little bit crazy, and then maybe I just stay away, and I don't even want to be good neighbors to him, because he's involved with these philosophic crazy things, you know. So I kind of a little bit reluctant to send links to Vedanta to people who I perceive to be absolutely unqualified. You understand? Because you either understand, you either value it or you don't. You either appreciate the teachings or you don't. There is nothing else but that, you know. If you don't, you will dismiss them out of hand, usually as, these are just more intellectual people, you know, merely intellectual. That's what people usually do. You know? That's why I don't like to mix up this conversation with neighbors or things like that, because, you know, even if they may have some spiritual vasanas, but they are all, you know, Osho or New Advaita or experiential oriented and so on. If you cannot understand what they mean, but you believe that they may be true, you know, if you don't understand Vedanta but believe that there is something to it, then there is some hope, assuming you are qualified. So there is some hope, you see some light, you see some value, you assume that you need to further develop your qualifications, and then there is hope. And then you need to work on your qualifications. You will understand it pending the result of your contemplation on the teachings. Okay, well said. We'll stop here today, and we come back next Monday from verse 109. Okay, we keep the same timing. How was your Thomas today, Claudio?
Good, better.
Okay.
Never so sattvic.
Okay, good. Very good. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. Namaste. We meet again this coming Thursday. Okay, Shivara willing. Namaste. Good night and good day. Yeah. Good morning.
Okay. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, Arlinda. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.